The first slide is a little bit about our team. So today we've got Alice and Joan. Alice is based in Nairn, Badenoch and Strathspey, and Joan is based everywhere, really. She's up and down the Highlands quite regularly. And I'm Luci, Ireland, and I'm based in Caithness, and I'm the Community Engagement Officer for East Caithness and Sutherland. So a little bit about our area. So we cover the Highland Council, the Orkney Islands Council and the Shetland Islands Council. So if you have a look at the sort of the blue line that we've got going around here, it's quite a big area, but we've got staff dotted about all over the place. And that's us. So by 2024, there should be about 20 hubs set up across Scotland. So that'll give a lot of coverage for us. The screen's frozen. There we go. So you've heard a little bit about who we are and what the area we cover. So we'll have a look at what it is the hub does. So we want to see communities tackling their needs through climate action. We can offer support for this. So community organisations who are already carrying out climate action and wanting to become an established group. We also support groups who are looking to make their organisations and communities more sustainable. This can be through future planning or operations that are already going on day to day. We encourage collaboration, so that's between communities and community organisations to work together on projects. A really good example of this would be our climate festival that we've just had through September. That was a really, really wide range of collaboration through nearly over 50 communities for the whole of the Highlands and Islands. So that was amazing to see. We also offer training and climate education to our members. So this includes carbon literacy training, a short climate awareness training session, net zero and environmental policy workshops, cost of living crisis training, and funding masterclasses, which is Joan's speciality. We are always keen to hear from our members about other training that they'd like to see. So if there's any sort of gaps that you'd like to see filled, anything that we can make up to help you with your day-to-day operations. Celebrating community climate action. So long before there was any social media influences, the change makers in our communities were and still are influencers of how we can make our places better to live, work and visit for everyone. So this includes being sustainable, local and responsive to the changes which are needed to both mitigate and adapt the climate emergency. So we celebrate these positive actions and the incredible work being carried out by the communities throughout our region and the positive aspects of taking climate action. Another one of our bits is capacity building. So we know just now that communities are dealing with complex issues. So COVID, cost of living, and just living in rural areas have added additional challenges to challenges that are already faced. So having climate action, it might not be at the top of possibly a very, very long list for a lot of communities, but that's where we're here to help. So we want to help build capacity within your organisation. This can be through informal support, offering training, or even stepping in as a volunteer. So if you're maybe struggling to get the engagement that you want, maybe you've got an event going and you're like, oh, I'm low on people, I could really use an extra hand, then whichever one of us is in your area could step in and go, you know what, we'll give you a hand, we'll be here for a few hours and we'll do what we can to help you. Giving a voice to our communities, which is a really important one. So government policy, local authority policies, they're all now headed in the direction of addressing the climate emergency. So we're here to give communities a voice in the direction of that policy. So your views and what you're telling us can get fed back at any given opportunity, including the policy responses and through our Scottish Government reporting. And last on this is why we're all here to have a look at this, is our funding support. So we offer small grants ourselves, which community organisations can apply for. We'll tell you a little bit more about those in a few minutes, but we can also support groups to gain further funding. So either direct support from one of our team members, or monthly funding finder and training and funding and how to write training applications. Funding applications, not training applications. So we'll move on to this next slide. So this is more of a recap of what we've just been over. It's our aims and objectives, but it's also the whole hub network aims and objectives. So all these new hubs that are coming on board will have these same kind of ideas running through them. I'll just have a quick run through them. So our first one, raise awareness of climate change and the actions communities can take to mitigate and adapt to climate change. Provide groups with advice and support to take mitigation and adaptation actions. Facilitate coordination and collaboration. Seed fund and develop new community climate action. Foster peer-to-peer learning. Signpost organisations and agencies who can offer support. Identify funding opportunities. Support local communities to design and develop carbon reduction and adaptation projects. Facilitate learning and development through provision of training and support materials. Provide a voice for local communities and the mechanism for policymakers to reach communities and influence and inform community-led action. Climate action policy. Oh, sorry, my screen keeps freezing. Cool. So have a look at this one. So this slide, climate action, community needs. So this slide kind of covers how you can take your community needs and solve them using climate action. So it kind of brings both of them together. I'll give you a little bit of background on it. So we were funded for 3 years by the Scottish Government. The award to become a climate hub was originally granted to Thurso Community Development Trust as a result of the work being done in the area. So we weren't just doing climate action, we were identifying community needs and solving them through climate action projects. Projects like community gardens, which creates a sustainable local food system and encourages local food growing. But the identified need behind this was reducing social isolation and creating community space. They also started the sharing shed. So this was set up with the community need of reducing food poverty, but it also educates the community around food waste and shares a sharing, not spending culture. So we have carried this work through to the Highlands and Islands Climate Hub, and we want to work with communities to identify what the needs are in their community and then implement climate action projects based on those needs. So the first bit we've got here is togetherness and mental well-being. So community growing, active travel through walking and cycling, including green health projects and improving green spaces are all ways which communities can come together, and it also has an impact on our overall mental well-being. The next one we've got food security. So food has the ability to bring people together. So we all know everyone likes to sit and have a cup of tea, have a biscuit, have a sandwich, and just have a little natter and a catch up. It's a good way to do it. It's what we do in the Highlands. But food can also impact people's health and well-being if you're struggling to be able to afford nutritious fresh food. So food larders, community fridges, community growing spaces, cooking classes, celebrating local food, it helps combat needs around food security in a community. Celebrating local food can improve an economy of a local place and a sense of community pride as well. One here, which has been a big thing since the energy prices, fuel security. So the cost of living crisis has hit all of our communities very hard. People who've never struggled before are now struggling with increased energy prices. So while these might have dropped slightly now, we're still seeing the impacts of them across the Highlands. Community needs of fuel and security can be addressed in long term through projects which provide energy efficiency advice, renewable energy or renewable heating. So some communities in the Highland are actively looking at retrofitting buildings and district heating systems. So they're taking a holistic long-term approach to supporting their area. And the last one on here, we've got connected and equitable. So thinking about what we buy and use, it really is key to taking climate action. So do you really need that drill that's been sitting in your shed? You've maybe used it once every 2 or 3 years to hang up the odd shelf or something like that. We could borrow things like these from tool libraries. And what if you can't afford certain items like tools or bikes? So projects such as repair cafes, where people not only have items repaired, but learn to do it themselves, future teach skills that many of us don't have, that were maybe used to be passed down through generations. Sewing is a really good example. I'm terrible at sewing. I can't do it. I've never been taught how to do it, but my mum's granny taught her how to do it. So you get these little nicks in your clothes and you're like, I could easily fix that rather than buy new ones, but I'm just completely useless at it. So bike sheds, they enable people to either try a bike before committing to buy, or might give access to someone who maybe couldn't afford one. So this I find really important, especially in rural areas. So if you live just on the outskirts of town, and you want to go in and be sociable, you maybe want to find a new job, something like that, but the buses aren't reliable and you struggle. If you can get yourself a bike from one of these projects, then you've got that access to the life that you're wanting sort of in the centre of town. So all of these and many more types of projects like this enable communities to both connect together and to become more equitable. We can all have access to the same things, and cost doesn't really need to be a factor in it. Just next one. So I'll just run through this really quickly, because obviously we'll look at this a little bit more after our speakers. So these are the funds that we currently have open. We've got our Climate Action Fund, so that's £500 for community projects, for climate action community projects. So they've got two closing dates. One's the 30th of November and one is the 31st of January. We've got our Sustainable Spaces, which is our kind of newer fund, what we're really trying to raise awareness of just now. And that's supporting community facilities to have a more sustainable operations. So our expressions of interest for that are open just now. And I think that closes on the 30th of November as well. Yeah, Alice is nodding. Okay, cool. And the last one is our Food Hygiene Heroes. So that's our level 2 food safety and hygiene certificates, which is quite handy for a lot of community organisations. So now I'm going to pass on to Denise from the Raigmore Association. Denise they have used some of our funding previously, and Denise is going to share how that's helped them. So over to you, Denise. I think you're on mute.
Is that me?
That's you, yeah.
Can we have our first slide, please?
Yeah, of course you can.
Thank you. Take me out the picture. I'm delighted to have been invited to speak to you all today about how our community has benefited from advice, support and funding from the Climate Hub. We are a small housing estate. Can we have our next slide, please, Lucy?
Of course you can. There you go.
Oh, Raigmore's a really small housing estate. It's the smallest in Inverness. We have a population of around 1,200 people living in 625 properties. We were built to provide social housing in the 50s and 60s, but there's only around 66 Highland Council properties left now. And we were kind of sandwiched between Raigmore Hospital, LifeScan Factory, the A9 and the UHI campus. We're classed in 2020 in the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation as number 14. What we're trying to do here is focus on our strengths and our assets of our community. The Residents Association, which I helped found and I'm now currently chair, we developed from a successful campaign group which managed to protect an area of naturalised woodland which is home to 200-year-old trees and countless biodiversity from being destroyed.
Are you ready for your next one, Denise?
I'm ready for my next one. Oh, thank you, Lucy.
No, that's okay.
So we established a community garden in a wee grow on the area where the woodland is and posted on a Highland Council survey about our aims to provide our community with fresh fruit and veg. Bethany from the Climate Hub Outreach, she contacted us expressing interest in information, gave us information about the hub. In the meantime, our aspirations had kind of broadened and we were collaborating with NHS Highland Raigmore Gardens project and had the support of our tenant participation team and Highland Council food growing officer to look to establishing a food forest, which intends to provide our community with so many things, with food resilience, while we're enhancing wildlife habitat and biodiversity to mitigate the climate change, and also providing a space for people to come together and skill share and meet each other. And we joined the hub and applied for funding. The climate team, the hub team, kindly visited us in September at last year's Climate Action Week, and it was lovely to meet everybody. We spent some time in the garden, we had a look at the regrow, and we went along and had a look at the site that we were planning for our food forest. The team left us feeling really supported. They gave us loads of advice while they were here, and it was really good to feel a part of the fantastic movement of communities that are working to combat climate change and pull communities together in a positive way. The process of applying is really straightforward. It's really user-friendly. Bethany helped us and supported us as we applied. With the funding that we got from the hub, we were able to invite a forest gardening expert from Aberdeen to Inverness to look at our site, give us advice, and he produced a report for us, which we were then able to use to give informed community consultation. And once our community agreed that they wanted to see the food forest, it then helped us to gain land use permissions from the Highland Council, who own the land. And then Bethany, bless her, helped me take on the daunting process of applying to the Nature Restoration Fund. A nightmare, completely unlike applying to the Climate Hub, which is so user-friendly. However, it was successful. We got nature restoration funding, and we started making our food forest, and it's now there. If we could have the next slide, please, Lucy. Sorry, my pens are falling everywhere.
No, that's okay. There we go.
So basically, quite frankly, without the help and support from the hub, I don't think we could have achieved what we had. In addition to all the support and advice, it's enabled us to develop our confidence, given us strength of convictions. We've got a template for further funding applications, and we're looking to establish a further 2 areas of development for food growing and nurturing nature around more. So thanks, Hub. I hope we've inspired you a little.
Thank you, Denise. That was really nice. That was really nice to hear all of that, because I wasn't here when obviously all of this was happening. So it's really nice to hear it from yourself.
Sorry, I maybe spoke a bit too quickly, but...
No, not at all. No, you were perfect, spot on. Thank you for that.
You were perfect. Perfect, Denise, and I will pass on to Bethany as well.
Thank you, Joan.
Who's currently on maternity leave, if anybody's not aware where she is. She will be back with us in March.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Denise. So any questions that you've got, just pop in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. So next, we'll introduce Hugh from Darach Socialcroft, and he's got his own presentation. So I'm going to stop screen sharing just now and hand it over to Hugh.
Okay, hopefully this is slightly, we had a technical go beforehand and it worked. So hopefully this will continue to work. If it doesn't, will somebody tell me that things aren't working?
We'll let you know.
Let's go back to the beginning. No. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Brilliant. So I'm Hugh, as I was so well introduced by Lucy. I'm from Darach Socialcroft, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. But what I'm primarily going to tell you about today, because this is what we've spent the funding on, is a website called natureconnection.guide. So as a bit of background, I live and work in Ardnamurchan in Strontian on a social croft, which is a bit like the Scottish equivalent of a care farm. So we use nature, traditional agricultural practices, and that kind of thing for therapeutic purposes. And this can be just people who are having a bit of a tough time, people experiencing poor mental health. A significant number of the people who visit are young people and quite often with neurodiversity. So they might have learning disabilities, autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, that kind of thing. Very early in our establishment, which was kind of 2019, 2020, I started doing some nature walks for well-being with one of our local High Life Highland countryside rangers. And as a part of a bigger package, I'd applied for some grant funding that would continue these kind of face-to-face activities. As we're probably all aware, our big project was supposed to start in March 2020, at the same time that COVID did. And the funders of that project basically said, try and innovate. So I was trying to figure out how I could do what I was trying to do without doing it face to face. And I came across a practice really with its background in Japan, where it's called Shinrin-yoku, which translates to forest bathing. It's not about woodland swimming. It's the Japanese translation translates really to immersing yourself in the forest atmosphere. So that's what it's about. And it's a kind of nature mindfulness practice where you walk very slowly or sit or stand, usually in a wooded area, and engage with your surroundings through all your different senses. So you focus on what you can see, what you can hear, what you can smell, things like that. And I thought I can do some online workshops on this. And I also became quite interested in forest bathing and trained as a forest bathing guide. But the most embryonic part of this was online. And what I did was webinars where I talked about the concept and gave people suggestions and resources as to what they could do to increase their nature connection in their 1 hour when they were allowed out, because this was during full lockdown. Consequently, I trained as a forest bathing guide, and one of the fundamental tenets really of forest bathing is that as well as being an activity that's good for your mental health, there's increasing evidence that it's very good at reducing anxiety, reducing stress, reducing depression. Right from the start in 1982, one of the other concepts, though, was that if people got benefit from nature, then they would take better care of the environment and they would demonstrate more pro-environmental behaviours. So really, what I'm trying to do is a two-pronged but simultaneous approach to two crises that I see going on at the moment, which is as a mental health crisis and an environmental crisis. And one of the strange things about being a forest bathing guide in the Western Highlands is that I have lots of places to go. I have lots of nature to connect with. It's a remote rural area. There's not a huge number of people who engage with what I'm offering. And so I'd started wondering, and there'll be a significant number who really aren't interested in groups or face-to-face stuff. So I came up with this idea of an online website that would kind of introduce people to the concept of nature connection. It's interesting because quite often when I talk to people about what I do, if they're outdoorsy, they go, "Oh, I do that anyway." And then those of them who come on one of my forest bathing walks quite often find that it's not what they naturally do. And one of the things I like most is when people say, "Do you know, I've walked here at least once a week for the last 20 years, and there's lots of things I've noticed today that I wouldn't usually." So this is where this guide kind of came from. What I wanted to do was really create a proof of concept. Luci talked about seed funding, and this is really what I spent the grant money on. What I needed really was a website and two different what are called software as services. So what you're about to see kind of involves three different websites that are merged together. And what I wanted to do was use this proof of concept to get further funding, which again I have, and I'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment. So hopefully, if I click on this, it'll launch a website, and hopefully you'll be able to see that website. So hopefully you can see a map of Scotland.
Yep, it's there.
And it's currently got these different pins. So the one furthest away from me is Rosemarkie, where I went to the Fairy Glen, and I'll demonstrate this in a minute. But broadly speaking, what I've done is to identify green spaces that are publicly accessible and go there myself with quite a special kind of camera that takes 360-degree photos, which I'll show you. And I'd have a walk, plan the nature connection activities I would offer if I was guiding it, and then photograph the location of each. And you'll see. So we've currently got Rosemarkie, got Glengarry Forest, Altmore in the Cairngorms. I've got one that I'm working on at the moment, Glencoe Lochen, and this was my first one, which is Ardery Woods. I live just about where the finger's pointing, so it seemed most obvious to do something really close to me. And this is what each of the locations looks like. Hopefully you can see a map with lots of little red icons on. Has that come up? Is anybody there?
Oh, yes, it's come up. You can't see us, can you?
Brilliant. No.
No, I forgot about that because I'm the same.
That's all right. So this is what the maps look like, and they've usually got, you know, where the path is and different activities. And when you click on the activity, it brings up two things. So you have a map of a photograph of the area, which hopefully will pop up in a minute, and an instruction. And the suggestion is that you sit on this bench for about 10 to 20 minutes and conduct what I call a sit-spot sensory inventory. So I would usually start with sitting and observing what's around me. What can I see? So I might be able to see trees, the loch, the peninsula on the other side of the loch. And then I might think about what I could hear, what I could smell, what I could feel. And I'd spend about 10 to 20 minutes doing this. And it's what we call a mindful practice. So the idea is that you focus on it to the exclusion of other things. And then when thoughts intrude, as they nearly always do, you 1 minute you're thinking about the leaves falling off the trees, and the next minute you're thinking, what kind of shopping do I need to do on my way home? And then you gently bring yourself back to what it was you were focusing on. And so the map, they have about 10 to 15 different activities in each. And currently I've only really mapped the Highlands, and I'm halfway through another one in Northern Ireland, but so kind of going back, this is my coverage at the moment. So this one was funded courtesy of the Highlands and Islands Climate Hub, and these are the four. I talked about seed funding, and using Ardery as an example, I approached Think Health, Think Nature and said, would they give me a grant to do another four, which they did. So we're kind of now on five live ones and one that I'm working on. When I did my report for Think Health, Think Nature, I'll go back to my slide again. When I did my report for Think Health, Think Nature, one of the bits of feedback was, could I connect all the photographs together to make a walk? you know, like a virtual walk. And unfortunately, I couldn't. But it gave me the idea to create these separately. And at the time, I'd just gone to house sit for my sister in the Yorkshire Dales and thought, I can have a practice while I'm here. So the second part of this website looks a bit like this. So I'll give you a moment and hopefully that will appear. Can you see a gate?
Yep, that's come through.
Okay, so this again is interactive, but in a slightly different way. So you can click on things and it kind of takes you to the next bit. If we spin round in this photo, that's the gate that you could see before. And you know, you can have a pause and you can have a look. I don't know how fast this is working for you, but you can look around 360 degrees around you. And have an explore. And then when you're done exploring, you can go kind of down to the next bit. And there's a piece of research that looked at what nature sounds people are most attracted to. And running water is one of them. The wind in the trees is another, and as is birdsong. So I went to a place called Janet's Foss, and I'll speed along and hopefully you can see a still of a waterfall.
Yep, that's come through.
And I don't know if I've got my sound right, but and I might try it with a different one. But embedded in these are the ambient sounds. So what I did was to record a minute of the waterfall, and you can click on the dot and you'll get a minute of the waterfall. And so you can kind of take your time and have the waterfall. It's quite big and it's a slightly harsh sound. So I'm going to see if I can move my way downstream. Now I'll try the sound and see if you can hear it. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear that.
Right, it might just be coming out and going back in the speakers. So again, it's a bit of a proof of concept. I don't have quite the best sound recording equipment, so there was a bit of wind noise, and you couldn't hear the birds as well as I'd hoped. But that's really the two different parts of the project. So you can visit it yourself at natureconnectionguide.com. I had a look at my stats just before I came on, and this has been live really for about 3 months now, and it's had 599 unique visitors who've looked at 1,456 locations, and most of the people have come from Highland. So I think it's about 20% of the visits have been from Highland. I'll stop sharing, but maybe I can't find out how to escape. There we go. I'm back again. Does anyone have any questions they wanted to ask?
Yes. What was the other source of funding that you received?
So it was Think Health, Think Nature,
Thank you.
which is a bit like the Green Health wing of the NHS. It's a partnership, and somebody's asked how much does it cost to do one. There was a bit of slippage because I was trying to do this kind of as a proof of concept. So I think my overheads really are the website hosting is about £150 a year. The bit that makes the interactive pins is about the same, and so is the hosting of the 360-degree photos. So my sort of constant overheads are about £450 a year, which is kind of what the Highlands and Islands Climate Hub funding covered. I'd said to Think Health, Think Nature that I would do them for £250 each, and then discovered that the maps take an enormous length of time to do, and so it's probably about £400 to £500 per map to do. That's my best guess.
Are you thinking of maybe working together with the NHS? I mean, I can imagine somebody who's in hospital for a long time and unable to go out and connect with nature might appreciate the, you know, the virtual nature walks that you're doing like that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping to.
Just the thought.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do a series of them, and hopefully with sort of better. I've kind of got the visual bit right, but the doing more audio stuff and more video of things moving. So yes, definitely. I in an ideal world, I want it to be probably 3/4 about the walks and 1/4 about virtual nature connection resources.
Has anyone else got any other questions? Well, we've got him here. Oh, cool. Right. Thank you very much, Hugh. That was really good. It's really interesting to see everything that you've managed to do. It's quite impressive.
Oh, good.
Right, so we'll carry on onto our next slide. My computer's having a little bit of a, there we go. Oh, no, that's wrong. There we go. Right, I'm back. So we'll have a look at our climate action funding. So this fund would be a really good opportunity to get a climate action project up and running. Maybe you've been sitting on an idea for a little while, you haven't known where to get the advice, where to get the funds, that sort of thing. Or maybe you've already got a project on the go that you're thinking, I'd quite like to see some more benefits, a little bit more impact here. How can I achieve that? So it's open to new and existing groups. We're particularly interested to see new ideas coming through or projects in areas that maybe haven't got a lot of climate action already taking place. We'd be really keen to see projects that have got a long-lasting effect. So my example here is about setting up sessions that focus on reuse and recycling. And this helps with the social isolation kind of side of things as well. My train of thought is with that, there's a little group just down the road from my house that do upcycling furniture, which seems to have sort of gone a little bit mad and everyone signs up to it. But yeah, that's become quite a sort of social thing for people who maybe weren't so much before that. Our next one is our sustainable spaces. So it's quite a new fund. We're trying to make awareness of it. We're looking for 10 community organisations who own facilities that want to work on sustainable policies for themselves and for other groups that use their space, so like community hall or public toilets or something like that. So the example above that I've given is your policy might state that you would like the reusable plastic cups and plates that are already in the facility to be used and washed, rather than groups buying products that'll be thrown away, paper plates, that sort of thing. Because although paper plates are typically recycled, if they've got any sort of food or anything on them, you've got to have clean things to be putting into the recycling. So the organisations will be asked to commit a maximum of about 10 hours of the projects, but that's over 3 months, so that's from January to March. You'll get one-to-one support from one of our members of staff and an access to a small pot of funding to buy reusables, eco-friendly cleaning items, anything else that could be needed. It has got a slightly tight deadline, but that's just because we're coming up to the Christmas period. We want to make the best use of time that we've got to sort of get everyone up and running. The organisations will be chosen by the end of December, with support starting beginning of January, hopefully, which really isn't that far away now. It's being run as a pilot, and we are hoping to see success through it so that we can continue doing it in the future. Get lots of sign-ups, that sort of thing, so that we can work it into our next years moving forward. And last but not least, we've got our food hygiene heroes. Oh, what's it doing? There we go. So we've been able to fund around 90 level 2 food safety and hygiene certificates. They're available for community groups. It's quite useful for sharing sheds, that sort of thing. They're really helpful in applying for funding. Joan was saying to me the other day that Hubbub would want to see that your volunteers have got this before they'll actually let you access the funds if you're going to be working with food, that sort of thing. It's also really beneficial for volunteers and staff personally. It opens doors to employment. I've come from a hospitality background, and this is the sort of thing I did when I was a chef. They like to see that you've got it already. It's one less box for them to tick when they're training you. And the Thurso Share and Shed have actually had success with this. Their volunteers have used the experience and certificates to successfully apply for jobs. So it's a really good thing to provide for your volunteers and for your own organisation. Here we've got, sorry,
I was just going to ask, how does that work? Is it an online training or is it an in-person training? Is it long or short?
It's an online training. Joan, I'm not sure how long it actually is though.
Let me take myself off mute and we can just go to questions and then we can do membership afterwards,
Okay.
Lucy. So for the Food Hygiene Heroes, it's an online training. So it would take usually a couple of hours at most to be able to complete the food hygiene training. And what we do is that, so we ask is for any volunteers or staff members who are involved in any form of a project which is doing anything with food waste. So we generally use the example of community larders and community fridges, but it could just as much be like doing community meals, anything like that, a food table. And what we do is when people put the application in for it, so any volunteer staff member of a community organisation that's situated in Highland, Orkney or Shetland can pop an application in for it, but we ask that they give the name of the organisation that they're working for, and we then go and check with whoever they've named as an individual to make sure that they've got online access. And if they don't have online access, then we can try and arrange online access or find a space for them to be able to do that training.
Okay, brilliant, thank you.
Do we have any other questions about any of the funding?
Yes, I'm just wondering if it's possible to put in for the £500 grant more than one area. I'm from Incredible Edible Inverness, and we have a variety of different sites within Inverness. The main one that we're looking to possibly fund is to establish fruit bushes in Belfield Park. But there are a couple of other sites where we would also benefit from funding for microfiber to go over plots that are at the moment being eaten by deer. And then there's also another plot where we have a need to repair quite a big planter. And I'm wondering if it's feasible to amalgamate all of those under one umbrella and say that they are all benefiting not only biodiversity but obviously also community engagement where each of these are.
Yeah, I would say, Wendy, I mean, it depends on your costs. So if it's going to be over the £500, then put in more than one application and explain, that it's for a different area. It might be, as with any form of funding, it depends on the level of the funding applications that we have coming in. We have a budget that we have to get spent by the end of March. So If there's not that many applications and you've got more than one application, then you might be lucky. But we'll just score it as, you know, we have a kind of scoring criteria, and we'll score it as we can. But I would say, yeah, if you've got more than one that you want to put in, then put in multiple applications. That's okay.
Super. Thank you.
Sarah, I'm seeing your questions in the chat. I think so there was one that you asked, will this run again? So in terms of the actual session, we'll probably run another session about our funding closer to the January date. So we know that we've got Christmas holidays and things in between, which makes it very difficult. But we are recording this, so we will make the recording available online. We'll put it onto our YouTube channel so that people can go and watch it again. And then second question was, can a group apply for £500 each year with a different project, so long as it's a good project? Yes, absolutely. I think the example of both Denise and with Hugh is that, like, we talk about the funding as seed funding. We stopped actually calling it seed funding because some people did think that we were only funding seeds. So we did kind of say that it's climate action funding. But yeah, it's there as a pot of money to get something started up. And we very much look on it as well as that it's starting to build a relationship with you as well. So if it's something that, just like in the example with the example with Denise, in that £500 was enough to get something started, and then there was that ongoing relationship through Bethany that helped to access further funding. And the example with Hugh as well is that helped to access, it helped to unlock other bits of funding. So yes, if we can start, like, we'd really love to see new and innovative projects coming through. So yes, you can apply more than, you can apply every time that we've got it open. If you want to apply in November and you want to apply in January, we're good with that as well. Do we have any other queries that anybody has? Denise, I'm seeing your hand up.
Joan, sorry. Hi, Joan. I'm just wondering, because obviously I'm with RCRA, I'm also with the Raigmore Gardens project, which is an NHS project, and we've only just recently acquired charitable status. Would it be acceptable for me to do applications for each organisation?
Absolutely, Denise. We are, okay. I think many of us sit with more than one hat on. So yeah, absolutely. And that's also another thing as well, is that whilst a lot of funds will only, you know, if you are just a new group and newly constituted and you maybe are going for charitable status but you don't have it yet and you're looking for actually a little bit of money to get started off, we are not that worried about that. Like, we do need to know that there is some form of a constitution and that you're not for profit. But if you are going through the process of doing that, and this is it, that £500 is enough to get you started off, then that's okay as well. So we're quite happy to hear from those kind of projects too. Alice, I can see you typing in there. Are you going to ask a question?
No, I did just think of something to say, which was, if you're not sure what you want to spend the money on, you've got like a bunch of ideas, we're always here to like have our ideas bounced off us, and we can help with the applications and stuff. So just, yeah, if you're unsure about anything, just let us know, and yeah, we'll be there to help you out, and help get those applications in. I was just popping the link into the chat actually to the page with the forms on, and if you want to have a look through and everything, just so yeah, I'll put the links in the chat so they're there for you.
That would be good. I was thinking about putting them in myself, but I'm also sitting making decorations. Denise, did you have another question?
Hello, I did. Obviously, I've already said we are so grateful to the Climate Hub for giving us the money to start our food forest. Excellent. We're in the process and so close to getting land use permissions for another 2 sites in Raigmore. can that be seen as a separate project? Is it all right to reapply for some help with that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
We want the funding that we have available. We're trying to fill that kind of gap. So it's not a huge amount of money. £500 isn't, but it can be enough to make something, to make something happen and to make the start of something happen. So yeah, we are keen to be as flexible and to make it as easy a process as we possibly can. Obviously, we have a budgetary consideration. So once it's gone, but we want to see as many groups as possible be able to get funding. And I mean, these are the funds that we have open at the moment. Come the new financial year, we'll be opening really quickly the Highlands and Islands Climate Festival fund as well. But that is not just funding that's for events when we open it, is that like we'd like to see there's ways that we can fund things through the festival funding. So say you want to be, you are developing a piece, an area, and you've got volunteers, but you've got volunteer costs, as in you need to get some tools and things like that. That kind of things can actually go under festival funding as well. So that's not open until the new financial year, but there is other ways. So I think really what I'd encourage anybody to do is have a conversation with us, reach out to one of the community engagement officers, one of the development officers. We're all listed on the website, and have a chat with us about what it is that you're looking to do, and we will see what we can do.
That's excellent. Can I just say, we're getting sort of forest maps made at the moment with a sign writer, and we've put Climate Hub logo on the 4 of them, just to let you know that we're advertising you.
Lovely.
And also recognising your help.
Lovely. I'll get Bethany to pop along with the pram and get a picture of her and baby in front of it.
I'll let you know once they're installed, Joan.
That would be lovely.
That's just reminded me that I didn't scroll down as far as I should, and underneath the maps, in fact, all the 5 maps that are done at the moment, it says thank you to the Highlands and Islands Climate Hub.
Thank you, Hugh. This is just the sort of things that we like to hear. And that people know where to find us. I'm going off to have a look at your website now, actually. I'm absolutely fascinated by it. I knew about it. I knew the conversations when we were funding you. That again Bethany was going through with you. But yeah, I've never had a chance to go and have a look at the website, but I definitely will do now. And I think it would be great to get a case study for actually both Raigmore and for Hugh up on our website. That would be great if you would both agree to do that. Yeah,
definitely.
Is there anybody who was particularly interested in the sustainable spaces funding? Because that's new for us. I'm not sure if there's anybody that has spaces that might be looking at it.
Would that go for, because you mentioned like village halls and stuff, would that be applicable to community gardens as well? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
That's really good to know.
Yeah, we are trying to find a range of different spaces. So we've had various conversations. So we know that, and I've worked quite a lot with that both Caithness and Sutherland have an actual village halls group that I've gone and done presentations to. Now, obviously, for halls, one of their main considerations at the moment is their energy costs. But there's also that low-lying fruit of how your spaces are used. So making sure that you have like having reusable. So this was a conversation that kind of came up with the Climate Festival. One of the key parts of the Climate Festival funding was if you were holding an event, we wanted you to be able to be using reusables rather than disposables. But for a lot of community spaces, they hire their spaces out and they're not always in control of what somebody is coming in. So say for a birthday party or anything like that. But I think that there's a body of work that can be done around creating sustainable spaces. And so what we would like to see, so we've got a little bit of money that we'd like to run this as a pilot. And find up to 10 groups. So, and we're looking for a variety of different types of community spaces. So it can be a village hall, it can be a community hub, it can be a community garden, it can be a public toilets that are community owned, any form of community spaces that are looking to make themselves that little bit more sustainable. And they'll go through a little bit of program, so there's a little bit of time to commit to it, as in we'd be looking to do a bit of an assessment on where you think that you are currently, making sure you've got an environmental and a net zero policy in place, and we would work with you to do that. Looking at, so this would deal with the low hanging fruit of making sure there's reusables, maybe putting in place some kind of charter for use for your space. But we can potentially connect groups into additional funding to start to deal with some of the bigger things as well. And then we've got a small amount of funding to purchase then that starting kit of reusables and getting rid of the disposables, anything that might be needed. So yes, and in fact, the quirkiest of community spaces, the better. You know, we are interested in, yeah, anything basically. That anything that any kind of space that it is that a community uses, because the more that we get on this pilot, then the more we can start to build that body of evidence that will then help to support other groups as well.
Okay, thank you.
Denise.
Yeah, hello, sorry. We as RCRA are also working in collaboration with the community transformation people at Vineyard Church, and we're looking, well, we've got permission to use a container that's adjacent to our community centre as a community fridge and larder, which will sort of combine the produce from the food forest as well. Is that the kind of thing you're thinking about?
Absolutely, yes. And actually, just when you started saying that, Denise, I hadn't actually thought about community larders and sort of community fridges and things, because I think we all think of them as being very sustainable spaces already, because they're dealing with food waste. But actually, the experience in Thurso, now that I start to think about it, is, I mean, we had issues with volunteers starting to use plastic bags, and like, where we're going to use paper bags. You know, there's all sorts of question marks that actually then start to arise when you go into the nitty gritty of how you're operating these spaces. And for a community fridge or community larder, as well as if you're going to be like, you're obviously like, if you're going to have a fridge or a freezer in there, what kind of equipment are you using, all of those things. How are your volunteers going to pick up the produce to take it to your community fridge or your community larder? So yeah, it's like a lot of these things, we all think that they're really, you know, that there's simple exchanges that you can make, yet you can really end up going down absolute rabbit holes with actually then starting to think about the nitty gritty and what is it that makes it sustainable. Because we know ourselves, even just me looking for business cards for the hub, our banner, you know, we go to lots of events, and our banners, that was, I think, about an 8-week long search that we had looking for where we could get our banners from, so that we could try and find an alternative that was sustainable. So yeah, yes, basically would be my answer, is that we're trying to cover as many different spaces as we possibly can.
That's excellent, Joan, thank you. I'll speak with Ashley and we'll be in touch.
Great. Wendy. Oh, I think you're on mute, Wendy.
Yeah. On that front, does the location need to be owned by the community, or can it be owned by the Highland Council but used by the community?
I think that we would be heading into kind of greyer territory there.
Yeah.
I think it would depend on what the usage is by the community. I mean, we have some spaces that are leased from Highland Council, so I think it would depend on how much they're involved in the operations. So that's maybe one to drop us an email about, and then we can have a look at it depending on what the space is.
Yeah, no, it's just an off chance thought, bearing in mind the funding is there. I'm just thinking quite broad here. I haven't really got any formal plan in place, but just thought I'd ask the question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that really it probably is going to have, because we're looking to kind of implement that policies as well and do that in that mindful way. You know, so many times we adopt policies because that's what somebody else has and we're just going to copy it and we're going to change the names in it, which there's nothing wrong with for lots of policies. I would absolutely, you can absolutely do that for lots of times as long as you have read it and you understand it. And but for something like this, for your actual operations, I think we want to try and encourage that there's a really mindful process in going through it. But because it's policies, I think if it's not a space that's operated by the community, then we would be, you know, if it's that's then trading into council policy, really, isn't it? And that's another, that would be a bigger fish for us to try and we'll try though. Just seeing typing in the chat, so thank you, Donna. If we don't have any other questions or queries, then I'm going to hand it back to Luci to wrap up. But I'm also going to say a very, very huge well done to Luci, because this was very genuinely the first time that she has done a presentation online. I actually don't think you've done very many presentations in real life either. So yeah,
No,
a massive
no, it's
well
been quite
done to
nerve-wracking
Luci.
for a couple of days. So thank you. Okay, so just get onto the member or on the membership one already. Okay, so we'll just wrap up with our membership. So if you're not already a member, then we'd love to see you sign up. We can give you a lot of support and things. There's little bullet points there that we can give. I'll just quick run through them. So our membership's available to organisation, individual and associates. We give peer learning and training opportunities. We hold members events, and obviously you have access to our hub funding. We have a collective voice to the Scottish Government, dedicated support, including resources, and a community of change makers that you will be involved with, people who are wanting to do the same things as you. It's a really good network to be part of. And that is us. Unless Alice or Joan have anything to add, that's us for the day. So thank you very much.
Just a big thank you all for coming along, and yeah, if you'd like to have a chat with us about any of those applications, just give us a shout.
Can I ask one more question before we go? In order to be part of the Climate Hub, do you have to be like an organisation with a constitution and stuff? Because you don't.
No.
Because I'm also part of a group locally here of people who have just restarted getting together and talking about climate issues and stuff. So we could also become part of the Climate Hub, even though.
Yeah, what I'd say is maybe just go in an organisation level for the membership. I would say don't select the CIC membership. We do have, I don't know how many of you might have received our newsletter, we do have some changes coming up in terms of how we're looking to do our governance, as in we're looking to now change over to a registered charity. So our membership will be changing slightly, but we can be converting people over. But yes, still go in as an organisation, that's fine. Yeah, we're here to encourage all of that grassroots climate action. So even if it is two people who are having a conversation in their community about climate issues, then yes, we would love to have you as part of our network.
Brilliant. Well, it's more than two people anyway. So, thank you.
So I think that's us for today. I think just another big thank you to Luci. And well done. And thank you to Hugh and to Denise. It was great to hear about your projects. Really good.
Thank you very much. Very informative.
Good. Glad you enjoyed it, Wendy.